Alright, so today I want to talk about this story from actually the Huffington Post Canada, which is a little surprising to see, but nevertheless, it's titled Canadian Business Investment Drops to 25-Year Low, Sparking Questions About Job Growth. And the one first question I would have about this is why are the questions just now being sparked? I mean, the economy's been pretty bad in Canada for at least a couple years now. I mean, basically ever since Trudeau got elected, it hasn't been great, and it's getting worse and worse by the it seems like day, but more worse and worse by the quarter at least. And this is pretty much all the evidence you need to see that everyone else in the world doesn't believe in Canada, because if everyone else in the world believed in Canada, they would be perfectly fine investing in Canada. So the other problem with it too is that the U.S. economy is doing very well, so that's another thing that hurts Canada. You can look at, I mean, that's another thing that speaks to just how bad the Canadian economy is that the dollar is about 25-30%. I don't know exactly what it is, cheaper or, yeah, cheap. I mean, the U.S. dollar is worth 25 to 30% more, but yet businesses or, foreign investors would still rather invest in the U.S. than Canada, even though they could invest in Canada for much cheaper. So that really goes to show just how bad the Canadian economy is right now. And basically, the one question that I would have is that for the people that still believe in Canada, still believe in the Trudeau government, still believe in all these leftist policies, well, what more is going to have to happen for you to believe that this isn't working? Like, what more? In most of Canada, layoffs or unemployment is a huge issue, and it's something that's really hurting Canada. I mean, especially in Alberta, Saskatchewan, unemployment's very high. The economy's not doing very well, and you have a Trudeau government that's hell bent on not fixing the problem. And I mean, you understand it from their perspective. They're people that largely don't vote for them, don't support them, so they don't really have much of an incentive to help them. And for all the people saying, well, life or people aren't that cruel, or they're not that bad. They don't care that little about people, and I don't know. It doesn't make any sense to me to think that way, because those same people argue that oil company executives will completely destroy the environment just so they can make an extra buck. But that's an argument that's just, it's such a one-sided double standard that I can't stand that argument when people try and make it. So people care about what's best for them, and they're going to do what's best for them, and that's what the Trudeau government is doing. And the difference between the left and the right on this issue is what's best for the right isn't necessarily what's worse for the left, but what's best for the left definitely is what's worse for people on the right, and what's best for people on the left. So that's kind of one of the other difference between the left and the right that people don't really talk about, because what's best for the people on the left tends to be massive wealth transfers, massive welfare states, free health care, tons of regulations, and that directly hurts people on the right, because how people on the right tend to get ahead is through lower taxes, through not having a massive welfare state, through not having massive regulations, and having less regulations and less of a welfare state and less free this, free that kind of indirectly hurts people on the left. But even though it's bad for them in a way, it's also good for them in a way, in that if you know someone who's hooked on heroin, well, it's bad to get them off the heroin, but in essence, it's also bad, and it's going to be a very painful process. So that's kind of the equivalent there. So I don't want to talk too much more about this issue, but the main thing being is that people need, I mean, for anyone who isn't woke up already, like, I don't know, like I said, what more evidence it's going to take for you to wake up, because Canadian business investment drops to 25-year low. Like, could there be a much worse optimism for Canada? I mean, GDP growth in Canada is at like 1.5%. That's like very, very, that's like pitiful. Like, if you put like 10-year-old kids in charge of the Canadian economy, they could do 1.5%. and yet we have the Trudeau government doing 1.5. I mean, I don't think it's exactly 1.5, but it's very, very poor. I believe it's even less than inflation. So when you adjust for inflation, we actually have, I think it's 0.1 or 0.2% negative growth in Canada. That's how bad the economy's doing. So basically, that's all I wanted to talk about. So if you liked the video, make sure to hit that like and subscribe and stay tuned for more.